started recording
All
officially.
right. So, welcome into the first recording of R.A.M.cast.
I can't believe you dragged me into this.
I mean, you're the first, last, and to be honest, only person that I could think involving in this project.
You know what? That's fair. I just feel like I do too much because this now I'm officially part of two different podcasts.
Oh boy. So, basically the entire setup is it's a talk show. It's gonna be something that people can listen to in their car when their boss is ragging them at work and they don't want to tune into that. And it's just gonna be random and maniacal. And today we're just gonna be talking about the first time. Because I don't know about you, this is my first time podcast.
Well, as we've already established, it's not my first time, but
Ooh, already setting the mood lighting.
a new feature for, well, I guess a new feature for everyone, including me, especially me. I'm going to use this later.
Yeah. Oh, I bet you will. I bet you will.
But all right, so first, huh? Well, I'll let you start. What's the first thing you want to talk about?
Well, I think one of the first things that we should go in is one of the reasons why we are such good friends is our shared passion for D&D. And I'm just curious, what was your first intro to Dungeons and Dragons?
Oh man, do I have a story for you on this one? Okay. Trying to remember which one happened first. Okay. Yeah. My very first one, because like there was like three that kind of happened all very close to each other.
Hmm.
But the first one I think started me on it was the big. We were at Augusta University, right?
Yeah.
So we had this guy named Ryan who came in and just hosted a campaign that had like a large group of people. And I think it was my first time ever learning about it. So while he was the DM, he helped me create a character named Average Joe.
Okay.
Because apparently when I rolled stats that were so like middle of the
I
line.
remember you telling me about this when we had our D&D trip up to Ranger up in the
Yeah,
cabin. Yes.
right. So like it was just I ended up becoming a human warrior because again, first time ever playing, didn't know what I was doing, and my stats were so like middle of the road. I could have easily been the worst of any class ever. So I just ended up being like a warrior. So again, just average Joe. And I had so many near death experiences just making really odd decisions that by the end of it, he gifted a legendary item called the Gurney of Joe. And all it was as long as anyone had it equipped, if anyone yelled out the word medic, the gurney would then magically go out of my pocket, pick up the person that yelled medic, take them out of the fight so that I could stuff some herbs in their mouths.
Wait, so was like the gurney almost its own sentient thing where
Yeah,
oh man.
all I had to do was just yell medic and it would just drag whoever I needed out of the way. Because my stats were so bad and because like I didn't know what I was doing, I got relegated to when I wasn't dying, stuffing herbs down people's mouths.
Well, that's like in our current campaign that we're running, how many times have I, as the DM, almost killed or written off someone's artifacts, gear, familiar?
Dude, just be glad I haven't found a creative way to use my familiar yet. Oh, not familiar, the animal, because you really did forget.
You have one?
Yeah, you gave me a literal rune key that lets me
Oh, yeah.
summon a
So,
mini
yeah.
rhino.
So, I give you another artifact that's like your gurney that's just going to turn into a rhino.
It's gonna be great. As soon as I find a way to make it make you regret it, I'm going to do it.
Well, I mean, we're coming up on the big climax for that
All
campaign.
right, so
So,
flaming rhino it is.
okay. So, I think for myself, the first time that I had any interaction with actual D&D was actually again still back at Augusta University, and it was back when we were in the gaming club together. And it wasn't like a campaign. It wasn't like, a set amount of people sitting around, sitting down to tell the story. It was a dungeon crawl classic. It was that tournament that we'd had where the the staff advisor for the club sat down with us, and he was the dungeon master, and he had set up this dungeon crawl classic where it was, I believe it was like 5 people at a time sit down at this table. And you know how they always say dungeon masters in a typical setting are not there to kill you?
Yeah.
He was.
Oh.
So the whole point system for this campaign was literally how many encounters do you survive? It's not do you manage to kill anything? It's not, it could be, oh yeah, you managed to kill whatever you're fighting or you managed to get away. And literally the premise of it was like a bad horror movie where it was like Stranger Things before Stranger Things was a thing, and
Okay.
it was at band camp.
I'm sorry. You lost me there for a second. Band
So,
camp?
yes, literally just everyone that came in had their own little sheet of like either like a camp counselor or one of the staff or just a random camper at this band camp. And literally all your weapons was typical stuff that you'd find at a band camp. So it's like, I dual wield my trombone case.
Oh my God. So,
And at the end of it, this was over about like a 4 hour tournament through a rotation of chairs because if you died, you had to give up your spot. And then that's how the point system
oh my
worked
God.
was, oh, you survived an encounter. You get a stamp on your sheet. So at the end of it, it came down to myself and two others. All were tied at 4 encounters survived. Don't ask me how. I barely remember it. But the worst part was that the final tiebreaker had nothing to do with D&D. It was just Jenga. And so the winner got like a pound of assorted dice, a little plastic trophy, and like an intro to dungeon crawl books that was looked like it was printed in 1982.
I love how you got the faculty advisor to do all this because when I was like in the gaming club, I feel like I was pulling teeth because I don't even remember who the faculty advisor even was at the time.
All I remember was that he was the husband of our chief office person that worked in the art department. So
Oh.
I saw her all the time whenever I was going in for like
Yeah,
meetings with staff or my actual academic advisors.
yeah.
And it was her husband that was the staff advisor to the gaming club.
All right, fair enough.
So keeping on the game aspect, first game console that you would actually consider to be yours.
Super Nintendo.
Super Nintendo?
Okay,
Okay, okay, we talking SNES or just NES?
SNES is
Okay,
the first one I have any memories of
okay.
actually having in my home that I played. And to even add on top of that, my very first game that I legitimately have any memories on is the Tiny Toons Buster's Adventure game.
Wow, Tiny Toons.
Right? Like, wasn't
Just the unforeseen and completely forgotten, you know, the lost stepchildren of the Looney Tunes.
sorry, add more on top of that. I never actually beat the game, so now that I've reminded myself of that, I've got a new goal in life.
Well, we'll put a pin in that. So, I mean, I remember growing up. Yes, we did have an SNES in the house, but I think the first console that I actually remember getting was the PlayStation 2.
Really?
Now, to be fair, we did have an N64 prior to that, but I think that one actually may have been my mom's because my mom was obsessed with Mario. Like Mario was her thing.
Okay.
So I remember her playing Super Mario World on the SNES, And then when Mario 64 came out, she went through that. But then the big one for me was always the PlayStation 2, and I remember the big staple game for me when I got that was Sly Cooper and the Devious Raccoonist.
All right, I'm glad it was at least one of the big three,
That
because
that game to that game is goated in my mind for that
you
system.
know what the worst. All right, so the sad part about this is I was a big Sony like guy growing up because I really liked Ratchet and Clank. I really loved Jack and Daxter, right?
Ratchet and Clank is awesome.
I feel bad about this, but I didn't play any of the Sly Cooper games until college.
Oh, that's like it's a complete loss of childhood.
But like after I played the first one, because I don't remember, it was probably some YouTube video in combination with one of our mutual friends, Frost, at the time. She's like
I
gifted it to
remember.
me.
Yeah.
Ran it through all three of the PS2 classics as soon as like no Super Gaming Brothers. It was they did a let's play of it and it looked interesting. It's like, why did I never play this? Frost gave me her PS2 copy of it, and I was like, why did I never
Well,
play
and,
this?
and you know as well as I do, we are both children of the '90s. We both saw Space Jam, but we really know who had the furry awakening for
I I
gamers.
had my own awakening, but it wasn't her. All right. I will not die on that
I
hill with
call I
any of you.
call I call total BS on that.
Lola Bunny was not my awakening.
No, I'm talking about the Inspector Fox from Sly Cooper.
But since I never played it, she wasn't my awakening either.
Okay, you just had a late bloom. You were just a late
No, no,
bloomer.
my awakening was the female character from Jack and Daxter.
Man, see, and that was the thing. I feel like when it comes to games, I am one of those gamers that I do not follow the big ones that everyone gets into. Like, I still haven't played Baldur's Gate.
Neither have I.
But
So you're not the
like
only one on that one.
despite the fact that I have played in half a dozen different campaigns, DM'd two different ones, I do not see the appeal of turn-based video games. It's different when it's in person, but it
For video games, it feels like it just drags down, especially like for me, I agree with you because to this day, I still can't fathom playing any turn-based, especially JRPGs, because to me, it's like I get the strategies behind the battles. I hate the consistency of how long every one of them takes,
it
on top of
does.
how many you have to go through to feel like you're making any actual progress.
And see, with me, it's like I like to I like that frantic feeling of, having to take that reaction time. It's just that tiniest little drop of adrenaline that it gives you, when you perfect dodge or you perfect parry, but then in a turn-based game, it takes that all away. You know, I never saw it with any of the Final Fantasy games. I never saw it with like any of the XCOM or the Valkyria Chronicles or anything like that.
I will say Valkyria Chronicles is the exception to that because yes, it's still technically turn-based. I think the way it does it alleviates my main issues with it. There's not nearly as much grinding as I thought, and the one spot I did have to grind a little bit, that mission was so quick, like it was just get it done, get it done, get it done, bam. But I do agree, like Final Fantasy games, at least up until the latest one, I had like no interest in whatsoever.
So keeping on the video game, you mentioned for games that you have 100% completed. Would you consider yourself a completionist when
Oh
it comes to
hell no.
games?
I think the only game I've ever 100% completed was the Spider-Man Insomniac game when it came out on PC.
So the one from what was it 2016
Yes. I'm still waiting for the second one to actually like it's going to be a few years, I
to
bet.
get ported?
Yeah, but I just need Sony to realize, hey, there's nothing wrong with PC.
PCs. Well, I'm sure you've seen that the much anticipated Grand Theft Auto 6 trailer finally drops, and it looks like PCs are getting left out again.
For now, but honestly, that's it's probably going to get oh, no, let me scratch that. It's going to probably be like a temporary, like, hey, we're gonna focus on console gamers because that those are the people that primarily buy our games. It's probably going to get ported eventually because not that I think everything gets ported to PC, but let's be honest, most of the big names that aren't like tied to consoles, like Sony exclusives or I would say Xbox exclusives, but that's starting to shift lately too. They'll eventually get a PC port once, our console games sales are dying down a little bit. Might as well.
Well, and it is kind of sad to say that, you know, when I was growing up, I still have my PlayStation 2. And I was basically stuck on that one for the longest. It took me until maybe the tail end when the Xbox 360 was out and still the most popular to scratch and save my enough of my own money to buy one for myself, because I remember going over to friend's house and the big ticket was always Halo. You know,
Yeah,
the LAN parties, the split screens,
the
you know,
screen sharing.
the screen sharing, the screen peeking. We all know those few people that are guilty of it, the screen peekers. Don't even look back at GoldenEye N64.
Uh,
Halo had it the worst. But it took me forever to get my own Xbox 360, and it was specifically for Halo because that was back when I thought that Xbox had the best of the console exclusives. I've since learned. Granted, I have since learned that there are far better exclusives for PlayStation, but I missed PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, and only recently got into PlayStation 5 because I finally had to break down and get into the new God of War. Thankfully things were more, well stocked to a point where I
yeah.
could get one.
Dude, who are you telling? I was working at Target at the time that shit came out. I That is an experience I wouldn't wish upon anybody.
And I think I actually got mine out of a GameStop strictly because I had someone on the inside, total under the counter deals. Like, hey man, I got PS5s in the back. I got one left.
It's all yours.
All for you. But you know, I don't think I have gotten the quote unquote platinum when it comes to PlayStation games on any of the ones that I played. Have I completed them? Yes. But as far as like an actual platinum, I think that if the measure of 100% completion is a platinum, it it doesn't really count to me because I see a lot of the bonus achievements that they put
Mhm.
towards a platinum as just unnecessary. It's like you put in enough work to get 100% in a game.
Yeah.
And here's my prime example. Batman Arkham Knight. If you or
Oof.
anyone knows what it takes to get 100% story completion, all the trophies, all of the villains, everything unlocked in that game, it takes you a good while. And it is fulfilling to get that, last 5 minute extra uh cutscene at the end. And, Warner Brothers games, come on, give us another installment. I'm sure you can work out something with Insomniac, whatever, but you know, they're hitting it. Marvel is cranking out uh games now. It's like we just got we knew Wolverine was coming.
Yeah.
Now we've got Blade around the corner.
Which, let me just say, I like the idea of a Blade game. I'm skeptical of Bethesda being the one behind it.
Well, and here's the thing. Even though it's not one of my favorites, but I will give credit where credit is due, considering it's the same studio that did Dishonored.
Okay.
and as well as how well and acclaimed by the masses that Dishonored is, I I have cautious optimism, and I will put it to you like that: cautious optimism.
Okay.
I find I find the setting interesting, considering that it's in Paris of all
Really?
places.
Oh
Yes,
man.
because if you go back and look, he's it's not in like Louisiana. It's in Paris. The barber shop where
Yeah.
the trailer opens up, it's in French. And so I think for ambiance, which I think the studio does well, ambiance wise, France I think is going to be really cool because, just imagine Blade skulking around in the catacombs under Paris. That's going to do something.
Admittedly, it almost feels a little mismatched with me, but I'm also not like a huge comic person, so I don't know what all Blade has
Oh,
done through
fair
his
enough.
life. So
So let's see. What else do we have for some first? You gotta have something off of your head.
nothing that.
Everything's fair. Everything's fair in R.A.M.cast.
Oh my God. Okay. I've I've just been all over the place. So like me trying to think of first that won't automatically get us canceled was like, oh God, why does my mind work this way?
Children of the '90s. I'm telling you.
Look, there's something in the water. That's all I really know. Um, whew, for what first should I go with? First hobby that isn't gaming related.
First, oh man, now you're okay. See, here's the worst part. Okay, now when you say hobby that's not gaming related, are we limiting it to the video games or even like tabletop and card games?
No games whatsoever.
No games. Oh, that's
Yeah,
hard.
it is.
That's hard. Why do you have to like it's going simple? You're the one that's like eliciting such thought-provoking questions.
I told you
Uh
my mind works in mysterious
okay,
ways.
let's see. The first non-game related hobby. See, that's the thing, is like I have dabbled in damn near everything and anything, I was big into drawing and coloring when I was a kid.
Right.
Uh, didn't really take it anywhere because despite the fact, I would air quote practice all the time, but it just never took off. But then I would say that I did find a little bit of comfort and 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 skill when it came to some other art aspects. Photography, I did get into when I was in college. I started doing ceramics. Um, and so I would say that, outside of gaming, the big one for me would probably be various art and even crafting.
Okay.
I have done, a couple of keychains that I've given to various friends. Um, I've done a couple of different t-shirt t-shirts, be it the iron on or even tie dye. But it's tough to think of other mainstay hobbies outside of gaming.
Yeah, it
Okay,
is.
you know, we're millennials. We are the ones that came in glued to the screen.
Yeah. And I never got out of that. I am just the worst. No, for me, not even photography, video editing straight out. Now, I did stuff,
And you wonder why I involved you in this.
right? Now, I did do stuff because my parents like got me into like taekwondo, violin, and all that, but
Wait, violin.
oh yeah, I played violin.
Okay, hold on. Go from pause. Go taekwondo to violin. I feel that needs to be reversed.
Technically, I took them both at the same time. I don't know what to tell you. No, no, no. Violin I did in elementary school, and
Okay.
I got all the way to middle school. As soon as I got to God, what was it? Ninth grade. As soon as I got to high school, That's when I quit a lot of my hobbies. But violin, I technically started in elementary school.
So
Taekwondo, I got into in
were
middle
you
school.
were you in like the school band and
Oh
everything?
no, this was outside. This was like a out of school, like after
Because
school thing.
I will tell you a school band story right here right now.
Oh my
So, I know I'm giving you crap for the violin,
God.
but I know that that's not something that you can fake, unlike I did when I was in middle school band. So I had no interest to playing any kind of instruments as a kid,
Right.
and it was the unfortunate situation where my parents were like, "You have to pick something because you can't just have no extracurriculars." So they landed me in band, and I was thinking, you know, what is possibly the easiest things? Drums. So
Oh.
I went with drums. Little did I know that in middle school band, when it comes to drums, you don't get just drums. You get looped into all percussion, and then you get the bell. And I have no I had no musical bone in my body whatsoever. So I can't remember what grade it is, but there was an actual we had to do an actual performance, and thankfully I wasn't the only person who played bells when this whole production came about. But I'm standing in the back with my bells, nervous as all get out, and I'm like, I haven't practiced. This is going to sound terrible. So what do? I take my little bell beaters
Yeah.
or my little paddles, and you know how they have the ball at the end?
Yeah.
I flipped them around and I held the ball part in my hand. So all I have is just this little stick, and I'm completely just winging it, just lightly tapping, and thankfully barely making any noise. Managed to get through the entire production, and no one was any wiser. So I know I may have just outed myself for anyone that was in my high school or my middle school band. I'm sorry, I'm not musically talented.
Hey, to be honest, neither was I, but I also didn't practice, to be fair. Like,
So it's just the dying cat.
I mean, for the most part, like, I feel like if I had really wanted to practice and actually like be good at it, I probably could have been at least decent. I was also like a kid obsessed with video games and just did not actually care. I was just
Same.
doing it to like make my parents happy. Sorry.
Sorry, mom.
But no, like, so violin wasn't really, I don't consider that as much of a hobby.
Mhm.
The Taekwondo, I don't consider a hobby. I didn't consider it a hobby until much later in my life. I took that because, yes, I was interested in martial arts at the time, but I was also going through some bully stuff, and my parents like let me take it to boost self-confidence,
Yeah.
all that thing. So that was less of a hobby. So when I consider hobbies, I'm talking about like when you start becoming like even just a young adult. So to me, my first hobby, something I chose to do on my own accord that no one had to like help me like go through myself was video editing,
Hmm.
which just led to a lot of different rabbit holes of me at the time wanting to be a YouTuber when YouTube was still a brand new shit.
Yeah, it was the big thing. Now we've got TikTok and everything on there, and just quick little 15 seconds. And I know that there's plenty of people that have managed to take that platform and completely just make it everything they do, and kudos to them.
Oh, I have barely any respect for most of them.
We're
For
trying not to get canceled here.
I will. Anyway, no, like, okay, so there are some that I think make it work, especially ones who do like the comedian route and actually tell like either really good quick stories or like, make good skits or whatever. The ones that got super popular are generally the ones that just body react or just act without doing any like legwork pre-wise, you know? The kind of people that will like they'll just reenact like some script that was already written from a movie that had to have taken like months upon months of writing to be good and meme worthy, apparently, you know?
Well, and I've always thought that, comedy for me, I think, is always based in stories, and that's why, I've always had such respect for comedians like Gabriel Iglesias. Like, he tells stories, and they're funny. They're plenty funny stories. But, you know, if you find events in your life that, even if you take the tiniest little spin on them, and you can make them hysterical like he does, that's good. That's good comedy. You know, I wouldn't say that I have like the best stories, but I mean, they're enough to elicit some chuckles from some people. Like, when I legitimately tell people, so here's another first for you. What was your first major injury?
All right, so keep this right. I was also in Boy Scouts in middle school.
Figures.
Anyway, so when I was still like in middle school, this had to have been in no elementary school. This was elementary school. So I wasn't quite a Boy Scout. It was like one of the Cub Scouts, well, one of the levels under whatever, right? So my troop got a chance to like bring in the flag for like the big like you know county meeting, whatever, where a bunch of the different troops
Yeah,
would like meet up like once a month, I believe, whatever. So it was our troops' turn to like bring in the flag.
you were like the color guard.
Yeah. So like I was practicing like right before getting the flag, whatever.
Mhm.
So I'm carrying the flag, and then I trip and scrape the entirety of my forearm right before we actually had to go in there. And it was so bad that they legitimately had to like take me to the hospital to make sure I got wrapped up and all that. That was the first major injury I remember as a kid.
So I'm pretty sure that this one came before everyone, and I I do. I was always told this story. I don't have the exact memory of it, but it's like I did, crack my head when I was like 2 or 3 years old. Um, but you're most people don't remember that far back. I
Yeah.
know the one that I actually do remember, and you can splice this in later for Josh Gad with Olaf. It's like, oh dear, I've been impaled because I lived that. I lived actually being impaled. And here's the story to paint your picture.
All right.
So I am about 10 years old, okay, at the time. We're
Right.
living in San Antonio, Texas. And I'm down the street at my buddy's house, and we're playing basketball in his backyard. And
This sounds like it's going to be a scary story.
his dad must have been like a metal worker or something, because I go to sit down, and I was the brightest kid. I didn't decide to sit down on like a chair. It's like, oh, here's a cooler. I'm gonna sit down on. I'm only this tiny little 85-pound kid. What can go wrong? So I go to sit down on this cooler, and it completely just buckles from under me, and I fall backwards. And I feel just this pinch. And it's like there's that pain, and that feeling that you get a paper cut as a kid, and it's like the worst possible thing. It's like you feel like you're dying, like your finger just got amputated.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just the pure shock of it all, but there was a literal piece of rebar, the stuff that they stick in concrete,
Hmm.
that had impaled me right below my
Mm.
hip. And
Oh.
so like I said, I don't know if it was the shock, the adrenaline, what have you, but all I know is that I picked up my bike and told my buddy Jerry, is like, hey, I gotta go home. So I book it, 3, 4 houses up the road, throw my bike in the garage, run upstairs, and run straight into the bathroom, and close the door behind me. And all I could think about is like, what do I do? What do I do? It's not, oh, let me go get my parents. It's like, oh, I'm fine. This isn't a big deal. So all I do is just get a a washcloth with just warm water and put it over this gaping wound that I now
Oh,
have. And then the next couple of hours were just a blur between my dad coming in and seeing this blood-soaked rag, screaming for my mom to get the car to go to the ER, carrying me like an 85-pound sack of potatoes.
oh my God.
And so yeah, literally I got impaled through my butt cheek. I
I
can
can
gladly
gladly
say
say
I
I
haven't
haven't
been
been
through
through
anything
anything
nearly
nearly
that
that bad. Jesus.
never broken a bone, but I can say, yes, I've been impaled.
Okay. Woo.
So I welcome you to top any first times for that.
Dude, I don't know if I can, but I know we've been going on for a good 30 minutes. I think this is a good first episode so far.
I think it is, and I hope that anyone that's listening or watching, um, you know, come back in the next, couple rounds because we're gonna keep this random mania going for as long as we can really stomach it.
Till next time.
Have a good one.